grate me in the mouth. Yes.
69, dude.
I absolutely love
You have failed this
night ever.
Hey.
What is this? What are we doing?
No.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Call Guys podcast. I'm Gunner, also known as Chico Noise, two-time podcast host, probably the worst golfer in the entire world. And yes, I still cover my eyes during the scary parts of movies.
Oh man, I'm a corner peeker.
Oh, dude, I'm a head down, and I try to look up, but I can't.
Nope,
I can't.
I've got blanket over face. And I just look at a corner, and I just see where that corner at, and then what I'll do, because I know most all horror movies, they're not scary all the time. So what I'll do is that I'll bring that blanket down to cover about half the screen.
Yep.
And then when I feel like something's coming, I go back to just watching the corner.
Yeah. Well, that's jump scares have always got me, and I know you're not a huge fan of horror films at all.
Nope, none whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't mind them, but jump scares get me. And like suspense and thrillers, like when it feels like it could be real, that's when you're like really like, I don't really want to watch this because it's gonna make me think for the next 10 hours, especially when I go to bed.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I think my thing is that I just don't like to be scared. Like in real life, I tend to overreact.
Yeah.
Just my dad and how I was raised. You know, you don't play a lot of games.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
he was definitely, mess around and find out before it was actually a real thing. So I mean, that was pretty much my childhood, and it hurt a lot most of the time.
Oh yeah, we were always warned. You need to do this, you need to do that. Don't do this, don't do that. And if we did it, you were in trouble.
See, my favorite thing now is the counting. Hey, I'm gonna count to 3.
Yeah.
Okay. My dad would say it once, and then if he said it twice, so if he counted to 2, that hurt a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I was afraid to get to 3 because I'm pretty sure that meant death. But I never allowed it to get to 3 because 2 hurt that bad.
Yeah.
So
probably another reason you hide behind a blanket.
Yeah.
So speaking of horror films, what is the last horror film that you actually watched?
Probably the second Purge movie.
Okay. It's kind of a thriller horror-ish.
Like off the top of my head. And I kind of like those movies, the thriller, because it's mostly thriller with some horror.
Yeah.
It's not horror, that's a thriller. I really can't think of the last like real horror movie I watched.
Yeah.
I don't flock to them. I don't go to them. Would you count the Saw series horror?
Yeah.
Or more thriller?
Probably a little bit of both. Yeah. Same.
Yeah. So I remember one time I was trying to watch a movie and I couldn't watch it. And my dad said to watch it without the sound. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to hear it. Like, this is before, like, I was ever, like, subtitles were really, really popular and big.
Yeah.
He's like, just trust me. So I watched the first Saw movie with, like, no sound. And I laughed through a lot of it.
Well, yeah.
And that's the one thing that I've learned. And that's the really cool thing about music is that it can change the tone and it can make you feel and think things just by what the music is doing.
Yeah.
I think of like Halloween, like most of like the Halloween, the slashers, Freddy Krueger, they all have their own like theme song that when they're getting ready to show up on screen or you think that they're lurking in the background, they'll play that specific little sound that's for them. And I think that's one neat thing that music does that I like, even though it scares the crap out of me and I hate it.
Yeah.
But I think that's another reason why I like music so much.
Right on. That makes sense.
What about you? What's your last horror movie?
Once again, it's kind of a thriller suspense with a little bit of horror. And I almost wouldn't even say it was kind of more of a poltergeisty paranormal movie too. It had a little like
Okay.
every element because it could have been real, but at the same time it was scary and it had some elements of the paranormal, which was that Aftermath movie. And I don't know if I talked to you about that when I watched it, but I was listening to the United States of Paranormal, and they had an episode where there was kind of a in between. It was paranormal up to the point where they figured out that it wasn't paranormal. It was a guy living in their walls. And this movie was about that.
Oh
Like
wow.
there were paranormal things happening in the house and there were no explanations for it. And then they figure out that there's a guy living in the walls and he's the one doing all that stuff. Like food's going missing out of the fridge, things are being overturned, things are being, you know, damaged, scratched, moved, all this stuff. And then they figure out it's a guy living in their walls. So you get that whole element of kind of that horror paranormal, and then you get real. Like that. I don't know that could happen, but it probably could happen. I'm sure it has happened, you know.
I don't think I'm gonna go looking for it. I'll just put that out there.
No, yeah. And I live in a pretty small house. So if somebody was living in my walls, I would probably find them pretty quickly.
Yeah, you could
But
hide from them like in my house.
yeah, exactly. Your house is a little bit bigger. Definitely a possibility. Not to freak you out before you go to bed tonight, but yeah. So yeah, I don't watch a lot of horror films. I don't intake in a lot of horror just because it's not really my thing.
I
Um,
second that.
Suspense and thrillers a little bit more. Um, but yeah, expect an episode here in a couple weeks, maybe a month or so. We're gonna go over some horror films that we've watched, and maybe we'll watch some more before then, just so we have some more to talk about.
It'll probably be our shortest episode.
Yeah, it's a 20-minute episode. Short week for the call guys, um, but we do have a crossover episode coming up here in a couple weeks with the Murdnerds, where we will talk about suspense thrillers and all that kind of thing. And I think that's going to be a super fun episode. Oh,
Those
he's got
people?
those people right there. Yeah. The
Okay.
Murdnerds. So we're super excited about that. I need to get the logistics down with Alicia and Ashley and figure out exactly when that is going to go down.
I'm super excited because that's one of the things my wife and I like to watch is those crime suspense thrillers, little
Oh yeah.
docu series on Netflix. Like that's our cup of tea right now, and we love watching those. And I've watched a bunch, and I'm ready to kind of just talk about them. And I'm sure they probably maybe have watched some of them, but
Yeah. Well,
I'm excited.
when you really think about it, if you think about thrillers and, you know, horror films, a lot of those delve into murders, and that's what they cover. Obviously, the Murdnerds cover unsolved murders, but there's a lot of things in those shows and movies that, correlate to what actually happened. So, I mean, and I watch a lot of crime dramas, a lot of cop stuff. So, I mean, I get a lot of that there too. So, it's going to be an interesting episode to sit down and talk to them. I think it'll be kind of fun.
Yeah. Is the Emperor sitting in on that one?
He will. He is technically a murd nerd, so he will be in
Oh,
that
okay, yeah, that's
episode.
true. I forgot about that.
He is their third. He's just kind of there for the input on the murd nerds, which is fun because he gets almost into those cases as much as they do, which is super fun because
Yeah.
like when he's researching, he's just talking about that for weeks. Same with the paranormal too. And speaking of the paranormal, I want to give a shout out to Logan, Matt, and Bose for their last episode because that episode was awesome. The whole
I loved it.
the intro with the chiller filler plug and the whole time travel thing with
The TARDIS.
Brandon, yeah, Brandon hanging dong.
That was great. I did like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And it was just an awesome episode.
I felt like that was the actual Call Guys horror episode.
Yeah, we're just actually gonna repost that.
We should.
Yeah.
Or we could get them on
Yeah.
for that episode.
We'll
have
just
to
sit back.
Yeah.
We'll kick back, throw our legs up on the desks, and let them talk, and let them, just shoot it around about.
They'll do way better than us.
Oh yeah, guaranteed. But yeah, props to you guys because that episode was awesome. And I know the end got cut off, but I'm pretty sure that got fixed. I don't know if anybody noticed that, but
Yeah, I
hopefully,
noticed it when I heard it.
hopefully, if you guys are listening, we will do a crossover together at some point.
Yes, sir.
And I think that would be a really fun episode
I
because
think that
you
would be too.
guys have so much knowledge when it comes to every random subject you can talk about. So, which will make it even more fun because oh man, I can't imagine, 3 people on a Zoom call is enough. You get
Oh yeah.
5 people on here, it's going to be
We're gonna have to do
crazy.
we're gonna get to like the raise your hand cards.
Yeah. If you want to speak, you put up one hand. So yeah. Yeah. How's your week? You have a good week?
Oh yeah, it's getting busier at work, Outside of that, man, the kid is getting better. He's starting to feel like his old self again. Bit of a
Yeah.
cough, but nothing too crazy.
Good.
Wife's working. I'm working. We just went to the zoo, the Indy Zoo, this last weekend. A lot
Yeah.
of fun.
Love the Indy Zoo.
The kid loved the aquarium.
Yeah.
He would see something. He'd go, "Whoa,
Nice.
whoa!" And it was adorable, absolutely adorable. And of course, we stayed too long, and that doesn't add up well with a small child and
Oh yeah.
no nap.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
but yeah, for the most part, had a lot of fun.
I love the Indy Zoo. Sarah's mom lives relatively close, and we
Oh.
don't go down there all the time, but we have been with my parents multiple times, and I want to say Sarah's mom actually went with us once, but I don't really remember. We talked to her about it the other day. She doesn't remember it, but I'm pretty sure she went with us one time. And man, they have some cool stuff over there. They've got if you go out of the zoo, they have a butterfly exhibit. I don't know if you've ever done that, but that's a really
That's not
cool
there right
building.
now. Well, I don't know if that's there right now.
Oh,
There
it's
was a
not?
bunch of construction around that. I mean, it might still be there, but they've got a lot of construction going there right there in the front,
Right on.
where I thought where that butterfly place was.
Yeah. It's a really cool zoo. If you're in Indiana and you need something to do and you're down near Indy, stop at the zoo. It's a nice zoo. It really
Man,
is.
if only there was a podcast where some people went and did Indiana things.
Yeah, check it out. Golden Image Podcast. That's facebook.com/Golden Image Podcast, where we talk about all things Indiana. That's me, the Emperor, and Skywalker. And we go do things in Indiana and we report back on them because we want you, if you're in Indiana, you live in Indiana, and you need something to do, we want you to be able to listen and make a weekend out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
We have plugged every branch of the empire, just so
I
the
don't know
Emperor
how do we
knows.
manage that in the intro? Usually that's the outro.
I know. I was gonna say I don't even know if we need to do it in the outro, but
Yeah.
we probably should. But
Yeah, we will.
I just want the Emperor to know that we are playing by the rules, and we want we want special privileges because we are doing our best for the
Yeah.
Empire.
That's right. That's right. I'm glad you had fun at the zoo. That I feel like that's something that all parents should do with their kids. I mean, it's fun to see the reactions of kids, I guess, when you go down to the zoo.
So we're members at the Fort Wayne Zoo here, and they have a farm for those who haven't been to the Fort Wayne Zoo, and they have goats that you can go and pet.
Yeah.
Well, the kid has to pet every goat before he leaves. It's absolutely adorable. He loves that little area. If you guys ever come with us, that's going to be like one of the first things we do is go pet the goats because
right on.
He has to pet the goats.
Hey,
like,
that's okay.
Okay.
Next thing you know, he's going to have goats. Making you goat's milk ice cream.
No.
Oh man. For me, it's been busy. I've been having late nights every weekend because of weddings. And my sister's looking for houses. So, got to be a part of all that. My brother got
fun.
Yeah, my brother got married 2 weekends ago. Jared's brother got married last weekend. It's just been crazy.
You're a busy man, brother. Busy man.
And, I kind of have a break from weddings for a couple months, which is nice. But then I'm going to start filming. I have a couple I'm filming this year. And then Montana's is in October. So just keeping it busy.
That's all you gotta do sometimes. It's what
And
you gotta do.
not to even mention once September comes, man, I'm gonna be in Kansas City at least twice because we got our season tickets, and I'm doing
Nice.
2 of those games. And man, Pennsylvania, we're getting really close to starting that up. So I'm gonna be in Pennsylvania, so there's gonna be a lot of traveling episodes for the Call Guys, which we already know it works, so it's all good.
That's true.
The
That's
camp
true.
the campground's also in full production, which is awesome, and it's needed. I've been ready for it, and Sarah and I have not made it out there a lot. We've
Ah,
been out 3 times, I guess, already this year, and usually we're out there about every weekend. So hoping to get out
nice.
there. When this airs, it would be this past weekend. So I know we got some plans with Sydney and Lucas to go out on the old skeeter on Saturday. So we'll do that.
Nice.
But man, I just love the campground. You just get all the golf carts driving around, dad grilling breakfast, and grilling wings and burgers, and it's just, yeah, it's just fun. Good stuff.
Sounds like a fun time, man. I'm excited. We're going out for the wife's family get together. We're going
Yeah.
out, and usually, and then we go out. Then we'll probably go out at least maybe 1, maybe 2 more times just to see how the first time goes with the kids.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but that's something we're definitely excited to go do.
cool. I'm excited too. You just have to let me know when, and we'll be out there too.
I know.
Just make sure we're out there. I do have one last thing I want to hit, or two other things I want to hit on. The Boys
What's
season
up?
3 did come out,
Yep.
and let me just tell you, it is as raunchy and messed up as the first 2 seasons.
That's what
And
I've heard.
we're only 3 episodes in,
Oh
and
my.
but it's good. It'll keep you enthralled through the whole thing. It is just that good. And then also Obi-Wan is in full swing too. Expect an episode of us talking about Obi-Wan here in a couple weeks towards the end of June. Yeah, it's here and there is I think all.
Mostly there, but I think we should save the ammunition for that episode.
Yes, we should. And I think we're gonna try to have 2 special guests on that episode. So look forward to that. One of them you have seen before on the Call Guys. The other one will be new to the podcast.
Gunner brought a ringer, so I'm bringing a ringer.
Oh snap! Yeah, Colton once again sitting back, legs crossed, arms behind the head, because these guys are gonna be able to just go.
Yeah, because they're both really really into all of the animated Star Wars series. So
Yeah.
and from what I understand, that in order to maybe understand more of the Kenobi stuff, you really have to be in and watch those.
Like
And that's
the
fine.
Rebels and Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that's okay, but that's not a good enough excuse right now with where the show is currently at, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
To use that as a crutch.
Yeah, I started watching Rebels this week, and I actually am really enjoying it. I think it's different enough. The characters are different enough. You're bringing in, there have been characters that have popped in that are from the originals, and it's just a fun show. It's fun to see a new take on a young character that is force sensitive, that doesn't know exactly what he's doing. I mean, it is cool. It's cool. So yeah, guys, let us know how we're doing. You can always send us an email to thecallguyspodcast@gmail.com. There's gonna be a lot of episodes coming up where it's just gonna be going. So yeah, if you want to give us recommendations for an episode, question of the pod, anything like that, send us an email. Callguyspodcast@gmail.com. And speaking of the question of the pod, I have a question of the pod for you.
Oh my gosh, what is it? Give it to me.
It's gonna delve into my favorite subject of all time a little bit.
Okay.
If you could go back in time
Oh gosh.
to live in any era,
Oh my.
what era would that be? Decade, Jurassic. I mean, however you wanna do it.
Any era.
Any era.
And like that's when I'm born, or like I'm taking everything I have
You just
now.
everything you have now and going back and living in that era or that decade or just a time frame.
Man, that's a good question.
You want me to go first so you can think about it?
Yeah, yeah, you go first. I got some ideas, but I'm trying to justify my ideas.
Okay. I am gonna say the 80s.
The Why would you pick the 80s?
Let me just let me just give you the reasons that I have written down while I was thinking of this question. Three reasons: music, culture, movies. The 80s has some of the best movies ever created. You got Ghostbusters, Beverly Hills Cop, Gremlins, The Goonies, Top Gun, and I don't even know. There's just tons of movies. And three of my top 10 movies were made in the 80s, which gives you something. And then music, you got Bon Jovi, Michael Jackson, REO Speedwagon, Bruce Springsteen, Pink Floyd came out with The Wall in the 80s. I mean, there's tons of good music in the 80s too. And plus, I mean, it was kind of like the birth of hip hop at that point too. You started getting some hip hop bands coming along. And then I had culture, and I was thinking, if you think back to the 80s, you got people carrying around boom boxes with tapes, blaring their music, and the cars and big hair and colorful clothes. Like it was just a little bit of everything. Like it just, I don't know. Skateboarding was big in the 80s. Skateboarding was like huge in the 80s. And I didn't really skateboard much when I was young. When I went to college, I skated a little bit, but I mean, there's just a lot of things going on in the 80s that's fun. That's all I got.
I would say, I would piggyback on that. The Celtics Lakers rivalry in the 80s was at its all-time high, and I think that's when the best basketball was played was in the 80s. Um Team basketball, there were some great individuals on every team,
Yeah.
and so I would say for that reason I could see the 80s for that. Um
But
I think I'd want I think what?
not to mention it, just like our parents were teens, or my parent. I guess your parents were probably teens in the 80s. And
Late teens.
yeah, so I mean, you got to think they have just absorbed that culture. Like they actually took that culture in, and that was their childhood. Like what we grew up with was what we kind of base our lives on now. So they
Yeah.
grew up in that period, and that is what we learned as, you know, 5 to 12. We learned the 80s stuff. We knew the 80s hair bands. We knew all the 80s music, the 80s movies. Was like that was their stuff as growing up. So I feel like that's how William's probably going to be too when he hits his, you know, 5 to 15 range. You're probably going to be showing him Blink and A Day to Remember and all these bands that you listened to when you were growing up, because that's just how it's going to be. So, our kids, their generation is going to think that the 80s is somewhere that they would, or the 90s and 2000s
Early
are going to be somewhere
2000s,
they want
yeah.
to go back to. When William's a Call Guys host and we're way done with this, he's going to be doing this same conversation with his co-host.
Oh geez.
Yeah.
Oh
So
geez. I think I'd want to go back farther.
farther.
Yeah, I think I'd want to just start at the 1900s.
Okay. Dirt roads, ride a horse, maybe a
Easy
car.
easy life. Well, I don't want to say easy life, but just slower,
Yeah.
more more reserved, just kind of hanging out,
What would be
taking
your
care.
occupation?
Man, I mean, being 6'4" in the 1900s, I could have been anything.
In circus.
Yeah, probably something stupid like that.
Yeah.
Um, well, with the knowledge I have with plumbing and HVAC, who knows? I could have been a lead runner on that.
Yeah, you could have invented most of that.
Yeah, maybe. But
Just
they
take
have
some
ways.
parts back with you.
I think I think I'd go back for that, just for it to be more of a simpler time where, you wake up, did your chores, did more chores, went to sleep. Like just a simpler life, I think,
Yeah,
is what I would crave for.
you'd probably be a farmer.
I probably would be.
Yeah, I could see that. You know, and we think back to the early 1900s, and we think of that as like the lowest of the low in a point of like technology and all this stuff. But like the 20s, they were starting to like do more things. They had, you know, different kinds of cars. And I know in the early 1900s they probably had certain vehicles and stuff like that. It's like thinking back that that was 122 years ago is like thinking that it's the most historical thing, but it's really not that long ago if you think about it.
I mean, it's really not. No, I mean, America is still a very, very young country.
Yeah, so
So,
yeah.
I mean, we're still learning, obviously, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think I'd want to go back to a simpler time of just, where most of the responsibilities I felt like were home based, and you did stuff with inside of a small communities. Everybody helped each other,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. I think that's
Yeah.
what I would go for.
Yep. Love thy neighbor.
You betcha, brother.
That's right. So a question kind of segues us into what we're going to talk about today.
Oh, does it now?
It does, because we're going to be talking about Stranger Things.
Doo-doo-doo.
Mostly season 4, because season 4 part 1, you know, was up a couple weeks ago, and Colton and I have now watched all of that. But we also wanted to recap seasons 1, 2, and 3.
How did we get to season 4?
Yeah, exactly how we got there. And the question, I kind of had that question because Stranger Things is set in the 80s, and it's
Yeah.
set in a time before now. And you're kind of, when you're watching that show, time traveling back and seeing how those things are done. Obviously, some of it's kind of,
BS.
yeah, but I mean, it's just an interesting take to see a show like that and get some of that music and that style, and, you know, the kids riding the bikes around everywhere and all these things that, you know, kids were doing back in the 80s before they had electronics, technology, and all that good stuff. And yeah, it's just the question kind of segues us into it, which is kind of nice. And that is why I came up with that question, I guess.
Look at you.
Purposeful segues.
Look at you.
uh, so yeah, Stranger Things.
Where you want to
I
start with it? Do you want to just start at season 1, work our way up, and then talk about season 4, or do we want to
Yeah.
start season 4? Or
Yeah.
okay,
First of all, I just want to say I love this show. I
Yes.
love Stranger Things. It is a fun show, kind of a thriller, kind of a suspense, kind of a horror when you get into the season 4. If you really think about it, all the all the kind of weird things that kind of give you the chills when you're watching it, which we'll get to here in a little bit.
I think I'd lean more on season 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, because are we gonna do spoilers? I mean, are we past spoilers? Should we throw spoilers out there? How should we tread?
There will
on
be
this?
spoilers in season 4. If you've not seen season 4 and you have seen the other 3 seasons, go watch season
Perfect.
4, come back, listen, hear us talk about what happens in season 4 and what our thoughts are going to be for part 2 of season 4. If you have not watched any of Stranger Things, keep on listening. We're going to give you some spark notes. That way, when you're watching it, you know what's going to happen.
So I see. I would pick season 3 being more horror, because you had the Mind Slayer like trying to grow, and everything he was doing to do that was getting people
That's
down
true.
there, and that was just disgusting with the rats exploding and the people eating fertilizer. Like,
Oh, yeah.
that was. I mean, I felt like that one to me was the scariest one, because they're just doing stuff that's like, oh.
Yeah, Nancy and Jonathan walk down to that old lady's basement, and she's just like eating the fertilizer, and she turns her head and just looks at him.
My
It's like, yeah, it's like,
and I was like, that's the first thing I thought of. I was like,
yeah,
oh,
is
God.
that Smeagol? Yeah, the mind flare, that was kind of horror-esque if you think about it. Just like you said, all the rats exploding, the possession of people. It wasn't really killing the people as much as it was just possessing them and taking them. Because Billy would have lived
Yeah,
if he would have not been killed by the mind flare. Yeah, the flare.
correct.
So
I think so.
So let's go to season 1.
Okay.
And first, I'm going to introduce some of the characters because we have a ton of characters in this show. I mean, a ton of characters. You've got Will, Mike, Lucas, and Dustin, who
The
are
main, I call them
our
the main four.
main
Main
four.
four.
They're the boys. They're the group. They're the D&D party, is what they are. Especially in that first season, they play D&D. That's their thing. They're Dungeons and Dragons. They have this group that meets up and plays a campaign, and that's kind of what Stranger Things is really mostly about. Is a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that becomes real.
Yeah, I was gonna say I always liked how they always made the connection to what was going on through Dungeons and Dragons
Yeah.
with the Demogorgon
Yep.
in the first season.
In the first and like in the first season it's a Demogorgon, and then the last season it's obviously Vecna or whatever his name is.
Vecna, yeah.
And
in
then
in the second and third season, it's the Mind Slayer.
Mind Flayer, yeah. Yep. So yeah, we have the
Am
main
I saying
four.
that right?
It's Flare, Mind Flare.
Flare?
Flare, yeah.
Oh man,
you say Slayer.
I say Slayer.
I wasn't gonna correct you. I wasn't gonna correct you at all. It's like when Mike was on Gold Image podcast and he kept calling Derek Carr Eric Carr, and we were like, we're not gonna say anything. And then he said something, and my dad's like, you realize it's Derek. He's like, what? Oh, it is.
Okay, the Mind Flayer then.
Yeah.
Okay, Mind Flayer.
Flare. So we also have Nancy Wheeler, who is Mike's sister, Steve Harrington, who is Nancy's boyfriend, Jonathan, who is Will's brother, Joyce, which is Will and Jonathan's mom, played by Winona Ryder, and then Hopper, who's David Harbour, and he's the sheriff of Hawkins through the first 3 seasons. And then we also have 11, who's Millie Bobby Brown, also Jane, or 11, the number 11 tattooed on her arm, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. And then you have some on and off characters. Barb was kind of the main one in season 1 that dies there right off the start, pretty much.
Caught an L quick.
Yep. Just yep, gone. So let's go back and kind of discuss the goods and the bads and some of the plot and all this for season 1.
I think one of my favorite scenes was when Joyce was talking to Will in the living room with the Christmas lights / Ouija board she made. I'm gonna call it a Ouija board for
pretty much what it was. Yeah.
The Christmas lights alphabet, however you want to explain it. I thought that was a really cool scene. I thought that was done well. Any scene after that, Steve, the first couple episodes, Steve is just not a very nice dude.
Yeah.
He's the guy who I think is just okay. He's going to be the real bad guy, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Like the real bully, not the Demogorgon.
Mm-hmm.
And then they heel turn that because Steve is actually a good dude.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad they did, because the chemistry Steve has with Dusty is one of my favorite relationships in this whole series.
Yeah, especially season 3 when they come back to each other.
Yes, like they're always like it's just so funny. It's got that. I feel like that's the brotherly bond that I always wanted.
Yeah.
To be like that. So that, and I think Steve, honestly, is a great side character through this whole thing. And I don't know if you consider him a side character anymore, or if he is.
No, season 4, season 3 and 4, he's a main character.
I'd be with that. I'd get with that.
I would say he's kind of he's a side character in season 1. He becomes more of a main character in season 2, but then he is a main character season 3 and 4. And I think it's kind of the same with Jonathan and Nancy. I think. See, I feel like Jonathan though is slipping because he's away. That's true. In Cali.
Yeah. But I would agree with that for the first 3 seasons. I could see that. But I feel like there wasn't really a triangle until season 4.
That's true because they're kind of well, she was dating Steve in season 1, correct? So they were kind of dating.
Yeah.
And then she kind of starts falling for Jonathan. And then season 2, she really falls for Jonathan. And then season 3, they're dating. And then season 4, she's kind of falling back for Steve. So it's kind of just a roller coaster at this point.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that Steve is probably one of my favorite characters in the entire show. Um, I also think Robin is one of my favorite characters.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
then
yeah.
and then the supporting characters, Billy and then Eddie in season 4. But
Oh yeah,
we'll
Eddie
get to
for
those
sure.
later. We'll get
Yeah,
to those
yeah,
later.
yeah, yeah.
My favorite scene in all of season 1, man, I don't know. I think that all of the visions that Will has of the upside down, because we didn't really know what it was at that point, and you're seeing this whole like flip turned upside down world that is like, you know, something completely different than really what we've seen in any TV show, I guess. And, it's almost like a possession that he's under from I guess it would technically be the mind flare, right? I mean, it's
Yeah, in a roundabout way, yeah. Or is it really Vecna?
well, yeah, and then
I think
season
it's I
4
think
throws this twist that it is
that's
Vecna.
in not to jump the gun or anything, but I think that's why I love this TV show so much is that the storyline is amazing.
Yeah,
And a lot of the stuff that happened in season 1
it's
make a
coming
whole
back.
lot more sense now thanks to part 1 season 4.
We should go back and watch and see how many grandfather clocks we can find
Yeah.
throughout all of the other seasons, because that's like a main thing in season 4. And man, season 4, it really did just kind of tie everything together.
They're doing I mean this is what I wish Game of Thrones would have done. This is exactly what they should have done. And
Yeah,
Stranger Things is doing a fantastic job of wrapping and putting a bow on this series.
yeah. Oh, 100%. And I've seen speculation that season 4 is not actually going to be the last season, and I've seen other things that say it is the last season. I If they find a way to end it, I'm fine with that. But if they're finding a way to leave a cliffhanger and go on with another season, I'm perfectly fine with that too. Just don't ruin it on the way to that next season. That's all I got to say. And I don't want them to push it too far, but I also don't want them to hold back what they do have because it could be even better. So
I think the series is going to end on a cliffhanger and that'll be the end.
you think so?
Because
Well,
that's just how every season has ended.
yeah, true.
Is on some sort of a cliffhanger and I could see that happening again.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I also do really like David Harbour as Hopper. And, I kind of found some more love for him in Black Widow when he was um, Russia. I don't even know what his what his name was.
Red Captain America.
Yeah, yeah.
The commie Captain America.
Don't yell at me for this, but I don't know what his superhero name is. But I really did like him in Black Widow, although that movie wasn't that great. I liked
Oh, he was in
him.
an MCU movie, huh? I wonder.
The next thing you know, Millie Bobby Brown's going to be someone in the MCU, and then Winona
Hey.
Ryder is going to pop up.
I wonder
Watch out.
why.
Watch
I
out.
wonder why. Why would they go and do a Marvel movie? Huh.
It's Marvel's Stranger Things season 5. Everybody
Any
now has
thoughts?
superpowers.
Any thoughts?
Everybody is a number. No, but season 1 is just a great start to this show. Like, if you want to watch a fun kind of throwback to the 80s show and you want something that you can binge and get into, Stranger Things is the way to go. It really is. Like the whole first season is kind of lighthearted and fun. There are some darker moments, but it really is just a fun show to watch. It's once you get into season 2, 3, and 4 where it just starts getting darker and darker and darker and darker. It's like Harry Potter. You start lighthearted and then it just gets darker as the whole thing goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was funny when after the first two seasons, and they said they were doing a third season. I was like, man, I don't know how much longer Will's gonna survive,
Yeah,
because that dude is just getting picked on.
yeah, he really was. I mean, you got to think. Let's move on to season 2 a little bit and talk about some of those things because the whole first season, Will is possessed. Like he is
Yeah,
taking the brunt of the upside down, the mind flare, Vecna, Demogorgons, like all of this stuff is on him. And like there's points in the show where he is literally just out for the count and they've got to revive him and bring him back and all this stuff. But season 2 is almost just as bad. They think they've helped him, but he keeps having these visions of the mind flare and he keeps seeing the mind flare and he keeps like he's kind of going crazy. And there are moments in the show where he's like having seizures and like laying on the ground. And I think there's one point where he's like actually unconscious and then he comes back and he's just scribbling on papers and drawing stuff, which has a whole
yeah.
different plot point. And then you get Sean Astin as Bob, who comes in and tells him he just needs to face his fears. But then when he faces his fears, he gets taken.
He gets consumed by it.
Yeah. So it's like there Will does get picked on. I mean the whole show. And even in season 4, he doesn't really get picked on as much as he kind of just like he's almost the side character. It's like he did the opposite of what all the other characters did. He went from being the main character to the side character in season 4 and kind of 3.
Yeah, I think with Will, the interesting thing about him is that he would really the first two seasons was all about him, and then the last two seasons really hasn't been about him. So he's really changed from a main character to just kind of a side character. So I think that's kind of one of the interesting things about Will. So,
Yeah, I
um,
think I think that happens with a lot of the characters. They go from being a main character for, a season or two, and the next thing you know, they're a side character and you don't hear from them or hear about them for a while. They're still in the show, but they don't really fall in that main character realm that they were in previous season or they are going to be in the season after that,
yeah,
which I think you see a lot with especially with Max. You know, she was just that side character in season 2 and then season 4 she really plays a main role. Season 3 a little bit and then season 4 a lot.
yeah, they really wrote her into a main role. I felt like,
Yeah. I think Nancy was kind of the same way too. So it really is almost every character goes from being either a side character or a main character and then the complete opposite later on. But yeah, Will is really the main example. You don't see him as much in 3 and 4 as you did in 1 and 2.
yeah,
Now there were some really cool things that happened in season 2 overall though. And I think one of the main things that I think we both really enjoyed was Sean Astin coming in as Bob and seeing him as just a character in general.
you mean Sam?
Yeah,
I
Samwise.
only I only know him as Samwise.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was one of those like lovable characters. And unfortunately he dies.
He plays such a good like stepdad character just because of
Yeah.
the way his mannerisms and just about how he does stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a rough. That's probably been I mean honestly, that's probably been the biggest death in this whole series is that death so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah, and that was probably one of the saddest moments in the entire series too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't that's yeah, I full-heartedly agree with that cuz I'm telling you I was really pulling for him even though I was pulling for Hopper to get back with Joyce.
Yeah. Which
I was yeah.
Bob's death really carries that aspect on through the rest of the show. 3 and 4, you see Hopper trying to get with Joyce. You see
Yeah,
Hopper trying to fall in love with her.
but I think Joyce wasn't feeling it in episode 3 or season 3.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It took her a while to kind of I don't want to say get over him, but I mean that's kind of what had to happen.
Go
So,
through the grieving process.
yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know that it had the effect on any other character besides her. I mean, Bob didn't get any backstory really. Bob was just a pop up character. He was dating Joyce. He was there to teach Will how to face his fears, and then he dies, and then it gives Hopper the chance to jump in and be the runner up, kind of thing.
Didn't he work at like the RCA store or something like that?
Yeah, it was like a video store, like a
Yeah.
Radio Shack almost. Yeah. No, he was one of the most enjoyable characters in season 2, besides Billy, who I think becomes, well, he is one of my favorite characters in 2 and 3. And once again, a side character getting a main role, because season
And
3 is all
yeah, in
about
season
Billy
3. Yeah, it's really all about him. And
and Max. And man, season 2 I think is a good transition season to what happens in 3 and 4.
yeah, I feel like, yeah, out of all the seasons, that one to me is probably the biggest like skip over season, maybe,
Yeah.
that you could probably watch the other seasons, and then if you miss that one, you'd still kind of be okay with everything.
Yeah, I think the only thing you really have to go back and watch is Bob's death, because they do bring that up quite a bit in season 3 and a little bit even in season 4.
Yeah.
You see a lot of relationship changes too in season 2. You see well, Mike and 11 are dating, and Max and Lucas kind of flirt with each other. And then you even get to the point where you have Max and 11 kind of becoming friends. And I think they hit more on that when it comes to season 3
Three
even.
season 3, they kind of have their 1980s girls mall
Mall trip.
montage.
Yeah, which the mall is obviously the main focal point of that entire season. You get all the stuff with the Russians and all the stuff with the mall and all the stuff with, like,
It was really, I felt like it was more of like a it was more about how major companies are trying to take over the little people of a town like Hawkins.
yeah,
And I felt like there was a lot more deeper meaning than just, Russians coming in to build a mall. I felt like that was big corporate America trying to take over what really built America, were the mom and pop shops. And
yeah. And I think malls were just huge in the 80s too. I mean, that was
oh
just
yeah, they
one of those
were.
things that people did. And now look at malls. You go to the mall, they go to 2 stores, and you leave. Like, you don't go to spend your day there like most kids probably did.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember going to the Scottsdale Mall.
Yeah. The Scottsdale Mall doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, so walking
Now,
mall or whatever.
I will
But yeah.
go I will go to Fort Wayne to go to the malls. That is one of
Oh
those
yeah.
things Fort Wayne has that I will, if I'm in Fort Wayne, besides seeing you, I'm probably going for the mall. And
And
whether that's
Sweetwater.
in Sweetwater, but Jefferson Point or Glenbrook, I mean, both of those malls have stores that I would go to. But I mean, I don't go just to walk around and do whatever. I go to those certain stores and I leave.
Yeah.
And this was that time where malls became huge and people were there to go to the ice cream shops, go to the food court, go to all
I
the
felt like
clothing stores.
I felt like it was a safe place for parents just to drop their kids off and spend the day there with their friends. And they
Yeah.
went to work during the summer, and they just came up and either went home whenever they went home, or they got picked up there.
Yeah, exactly. So, one of the things I don't think we really hit on in season 1 when we were talking about it was Elle's background. And we don't really get a ton of it, but we get a lot of the Hawkins lab stuff in season 1. And kind of a little bit of her background, and that she has powers and everything with Dr. Brenner, I think is his name, Papa. And then
Yeah.
the other doctor that's there, they both come back in season 4. And then you get season 2 where at the end of season 1, Elle is in Hopper's cabin, and then season 2, Hopper's kind of trying to take care of her, but she escapes or leaves. and then
Yeah,
meets.
Hopper tried to keep her confined to the cabin,
Yeah,
and he always kept lying to her about being able to leave and being
yeah,
able to go do things. And she got fed up and said, "I'm out."
yep. And then she goes in, what is it, 8? She meets up with 8, Kaylee or Callie. I can't remember what her name is.
Well, she goes to the school and she sees that Mike and Max have
Max.
are kind. She assumes that they're hitting it off,
Yeah, they're like flirting with each
so
other.
she gets in a tiff, and then she goes on a spell where she goes and tries to find her mom,
Yeah,
and then she ends up in Chicago with 8,
yep,
and they end up hunting down other workers from the lab,
yeah,
and that's when Elle comes back, realizes, hey, this isn't the right thing, and then Elle comes back to the group and Hawkins, and that's kind of her
yeah.
story in episode
Yeah,
in episode.
they fight the flare then, right? And then they go on. And then I'm pretty sure it's like you get 1 year later. And it's like every season's like 1 year later, 1 year later, 1 year later.
Yeah, it kind of seems like it is that way.
I do feel like that whole story arc of her going to find her mom kind of gets lost. I don't feel like if you're thinking of Stranger Things, you're thinking of all the stuff that happens in Hawkins, and you kind of miss out on the things that are happening outside of that, the different storylines, like her going to find her mom, and especially in season 4, it's fresh in our minds, but in a year, how much of Russia are we going to remember? Like we're going to be thinking about everything that happened in Hawkins, and you get these little storylines in California and in Russia that it just kind of jumped all over the place, which to me is one of the worst parts of the season. It just felt like you were watching 3 different shows at one time.
Yeah, that is kind of I like it. I like having to pay attention like that, but 3 is kind of a tough thing to keep track of, especially if you're going to focus on the 3 stories in one episode. Then you got to try to remember before the last. Okay, what happened in the last one? Did they touch on it? Like
Yeah,
whose storyline am I following this
yeah.
time?
Well, plus you're getting flashbacks too, so you're getting
Yeah,
stuff that going
it's
back in time. So really, you have 4 storylines you're following.
yeah.
But so yeah, so the end of season 2, Bob dies. It's a demodog, I think, attacks him, and you see everything between Steve and Billy. They get in a fight, and then you get all the relationships between Steve and Jonathan and Nancy, and Steve and Nancy that are just all over the place. And then you go into season 3, and everything seems like it's just flattened out. Everybody's in a relationship.
Everyone's happy with where they're at.
Yeah. And then it just falls right back apart. You know, you get Max and Elle becoming friends, and Elle gets convinced to break up with Mike, and then Max breaks up with Lucas. So you have all these relationships falling apart. The only one that really stays okay is Jonathan and Nancy,
Yeah,
and that's until season 4 when it's kind of up in the
Jonathan
air.
gets relocated.
Yeah, but we do get the Russians in season 3, and I think there might have been some Russians in season 1 and 2, but I don't know that it was really a prominent um, aspect of the show at that time.
So the Russians, I believe they were in season 2, but they had a small, kind of like a small role because I think they were just playing like lookout, like kind of just seeing what was going down.
Yeah,
Because is it in season 2 or season 3 when the lab is vacated?
I think it's 3 or the end of
Okay.
2 into 3.
Yeah, so that's when I think it is 3 because the Russian dude roughs off the mayor
Yeah,
and pays off the mayor so that they can get the land to build the mall on top of the secret Russian base,
secret
essentially.
Russian base. Yeah, yeah, which is what underneath them all, right? So it's like
Yeah.
everything's happening there. You got Scoops Ahoy, which is where Steve and new character Robin are working. And like we said before, Dustin comes back from summer camp and is excited to introduce everybody to Susie, who is his girlfriend he met at camp. And obviously that falls through when he sets up his antenna and can't get a hold of her. And then you have the
The
whole
only thing the only thing he gets a hold of is a Russian code.
yeah, exactly, the Russian code, which then becomes a huge part of the episode. And then him and Steve and Robin decode it and figure it out and find the horse and the music the horse is playing. And they're like, it's happening here. So they know if the mall is kind of the central point of what this episode is gonna or this season's gonna be all about. Um, it was funny because I have in my notes that Dustin and Steve reunite, and that was kind of one of the things that you were talking about being one of your favorite relationships in the whole show. Um, yeah,
They
so
got
you
their own
get
handshake. They got their own handshake there at Chips Ahoy, and
yep,
the way Steve lights up when he sees him,
yeah, yeah.
it's like a good wholesome feeling.
Like, there's my little brother pretty much, and
Yeah,
we've been through some stuff together, so this relationship's really important.
yeah.
um, yeah, man, there's a lot of stuff that happens in season 3. You just it's and like you said before, it's really dark and it's kind of horror-esque because you get all this stuff that's happening with the fertilizer, the rats, and the mind flare, or whatever you want to call it, and just Billy, just becoming more and more possessed and taking the lifeguards and trying to get Mrs. Wheeler at the beginning in like the
Oh
one of the
yeah, Billy
first couple
Billy
episodes.
Billy was milf hunting real
Yeah,
hard.
he's a player. Billy's a player, and he's only doing it just to take people to the mind flare to be also possessed. So
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think that Billy wouldn't do that even if he wasn't possessed. I'm pretty sure he would. But still, I mean, there's a lot going on there. But he ends up getting one of his fellow lifeguards to the mind flare, who's then possessed, and then they kill her parents and or don't kill her parents, but take her parents to the mind
yeah,
flare, pretty much becoming minions of the flare. So,
yeah.
but you go on with the whole thing, and the group split off. Uh, one of them, I think they go to find Elle, or do they get I want to say that Elle is gone at this point, and they're going to find her, and then she comes back and gets wounded by the mind flayer, while the other team is actually at the mall trying to figure all this stuff out.
Let me check my notes.
Because
I got
they,
those dang things.
yeah, because they end up the other group ends up back at the mall is when that's when the flare attacks, and you have oh gosh, what's his name, Steve or not Steve, Hopper, Joyce, and the one guy, the conspiracy theorist, Murray,
Oh,
maybe.
Murray.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they end up down in the Russian base and they destroy the portal and all that good stuff. So, and then the season ends. We think Hopper's dead. Joyce and Will and Jonathan and Elle leave,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
that's
the end
it.
credit you get kind of that end credit scene where they're in Kamchatka,
Yeah, yeah,
Russia, and they're going through the Russian prison, and they pound on the door and say, "Hey, leave the American alone," or something like that. And
yeah,
everybody at that point in time is like, "It's Hopper, it's Hopper, it's
yeah,
Hopper."
yeah. But they don't show his face, and then they show the trailer for season 4, and sure enough, Hopper's alive at the prison, and then you got all these people making all they're taking all these ideas and saying, well, is he in the upside down in a upside down prison, or is he actually in Russia? And that's when we get into season 4, and I think I want to say season 3 is probably my favorite season. Season 4 would be a close second, but I I like I said before, I don't like the jumping around. I think that was what really took you out of it. You're watching it and 1 second you're in California, and then you're in Indiana, and then you're in Russia, then you're in the upside down. But the story of season 4 and the actual plot and taking it back to things that happened in season 1 and season 2 and season 3 and just seeing everything kind of come together And I do think they did that because this was quote unquote the last season, so they're trying to wrap it all up. But you get everything all back in one tight little knit ball. It's right here. And all those storylines come together. You're getting flashbacks to Hawkins' lab when Ella's little, and she's seeing it when she's in the. It's pretty much a Bacta tank, or what is Daredevil when he goes to heal, he lays in the water.
Oh,
I can't. It's like he submerges himself mostly in water because it helps him keep the sound down.
I can't think of it.
You know what I'm talking about though.
Yeah. I mean, this is like the Nina tank, I think is what they're referring to this as in
Yeah,
Stranger Things.
yeah. So Elle's in that, and they're showing her old videos of her at Hawkins' lab and the things that happened, and pretty much have she's convinced that she has killed all of the kids at the lab.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, we said before spoilers because season 4 is new. So if
Yeah.
you're listening to this part, just fast forward to the plugs. We'll catch you next time. um, but yeah, so she's seen all this stuff happen, and she's convinced she's killed all these kids, and so the overall goal here.
I think she, the reason why that affects her so much is that she only thinks of herself as a killer at
Yeah,
this point in time and not as the hero, as she
yeah,
explains later
yeah,
when she's retraining herself, and she's worried about becoming the villain again.
yeah. And I guess the is at the end of season 3 where she loses her powers.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So the main goal in this season is for her to get her powers back, and that's why we do figure out that Papa Dr. Brenner is alive, and he is there trying to help her get her powers back. And there's a bunch of stuff that happens in between where she gets taken by the people that work for Brenner, and they take her back just to try to get her powers back, which I think is a really cool plot line to have, is her going back there and seeing everything from the past. Um, we meet one of the who we think is a helper at the lab, which is a younger kid, kind of probably 16, 17. And we kind of meet him, and he's there, and he kind of just goes around and helping all the kids. Well, as they go through the season, Nancy and Jonathan are going, or no, it's Nancy and Robin that go to the asylum, right?
Correct. Yeah, they go to the asylum to see Victor.
Victor, and they talk to him because Victor had been imprisoned in the asylum for years because he quote unquote killed his family because he
Yeah.
went crazy because his house was haunted and all this stuff. And like, so you're seeing all this play out, and then you meet his son, his daughter, his wife. Well, his all three of them at this point have died, and he's in prison for their murders. And then they send him to the asylum. Well, a lot of the things that happen when Vecna takes a soul or takes a body, their limbs break, they lose their eyes, their jaws break, like all this stuff happens. And come to figure out in the end, it's actually his son who is number one, who is the helper at the lab, who is now Vecna. So you get all that playing out in one big round circle. It all comes back around. And I think, is that the last episode where they reveal that? Yeah, because you get his whole monologue and they go through and they reveal that whole thing. So that last piece there, they give you that monologue, which was my favorite. You just totally glitched out really bad.
That was weird, man.
Yeah, but that monologue of him had to have probably been my favorite part of the entire show.
Oh yeah, it was. It tied everything together, and it showed everything that happened, and
Yeah,
it answered all the questions. Like in the first episode, Eleven explains to him like she's the one who opened the gate, and you're like, how? What does that mean? Like now
Yeah.
we know how she opened the gate.
Yeah.
Like that's I mean, it's like I said earlier, Game of Thrones should have took their page at how to end a series from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Like it's this is how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah. Wrap things around. Like as we talked about with franchises, like what we wanted was a clear, concise plot that goes it's an umbrella over all of the movies, all of the episodes, whatever. And Stranger Things falls in that. You get the recurring characters, you get the umbrella plot, and if it wasn't for the last, 3 or 4 episodes of season 4 of Stranger Things, the plot might have just been lost. Like you just get all this stuff that's happening, but that last episode really just helped bring everything together.
Yeah, they did a really good job of making that the last episode of part 1 because now you know what part 2 is going to be all about.
Yeah.
It's
How are they going to
fisticuff.
beat him?
It's
How are they going to beat
fisticuff
him?
time. Yeah.
Yep. Well, and Steve at this point is just pissed because he was just dragged into the upside down,
Oh
bitten
yes.
bitten by a bunch of bats and beat up, and then uh Eddie and Robin make it out of the upside down through the portal from
Yep.
Eddie's trailer, which is a great like that first death of the cheerleader in the
Chrissy.
the first was it the second episode maybe?
I think it was the first.
Was it the first? That her
Yeah.
first death where it looks like she's just possessed and being thrown against the ceiling, and then everywhere that somebody has died has now become a portal. It was freaky, kind of horror film like.
Oh yeah,
And
I didn't
then
watch.
you were behind your blanket.
You bet I was.
But man, it's just like those things that happened, and the fact that Eddie has now become like he's kind of the throwaway character at this point. Like Eddie could die, right?
Yeah, I feel like that too because he's such a beloved character. They've done such a good job of like showing him and learning more about him, how he's really not the guy who he claims to be and who he puts on the outside. He's really a soft, gentle
Yeah.
person on the inside. Like I could definitely see him getting axed.
Did we talk about this with him being that character that always says that he would never run away? Like I'm not a runner. I don't run away. But he tells the kids during the D&D campaign, the final part of the campaign, he says, "You guys can run. You guys can give up.
Yeah.
You're not going to win. You got to roll that D20 and get a 20 to win." Like that's how it's got to be. And he's telling them that they can run, but he also says like he's like, "I'm not usually one to run." And then you get him in the episodes like when Chrissy dies, he runs.
Oh yeah.
And then the whole time he's running from the basketball players, he's running from
From the
the
cops.
cops. And I think what's going to happen in these next 2 episodes or however many episodes they do, I think he's going to step up to the plate and be
You shall not pass.
yeah, he's going to be the sacrifice.
Yeah, I think so too. They've really set that up. I mean, they even brought it up in the last episode about how he's found out that he's realized that he is that guy that runs when things get bad.
yeah.
And he didn't think that's what he was.
Yeah.
But he's found out that that's just who he is. And I think you're right. I think that's going to happen.
Yeah. I do. I really like that. Another point, I guess. I like that Dungeons and Dragons has made its way back because it kind of went away in season 3. It wasn't really a main thing. I know Will was trying to get them to play the whole time. In season 2, they might have had a campaign, but season 1, that's how they open it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I miss that, right? And you get that back with the Hellfire group, and which is how we get to know Eddie because he runs that group at the school. And what is he, like a senior for the 3rd time or something?
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. But there's just so many things in season 4 that happen, and I would really love for all of our listeners, if you have not watched Stranger Things, go watch it. If you have not watched season 4 yet, go watch it because I think you'll really enjoy it. I mean, like I said, the plot overhangs all of everything from
If you
season
want a
1 to
good
now.
if you want a good story, I think this is the show for you cuz
Yeah.
the way that they've written it and the way that they've shot it and the characters that they have and their growth that they go on from the first season to the fourth season,
Yeah.
it's quite incredible. And if you just like good character stories, I think this is a great one to
Yeah.
watch.
And there are some funny moments too. Like you get to California with Jonathan and his buddy, who I cannot think of what his name is.
Argyle.
Oh yeah, yeah, who works at the pizza place and drives the pizza van. I mean, you get some fun characters, and you get them.
I think Murray's hilarious.
Oh yeah, I love Marie and Yuri. Yuri is funny, the Russian pilot,
Yeah.
which that whole thing's kind of cool. And Yuri or Murray, sorry, um, has that really cool moment where he is acting like he is Yuri,
Yeah.
and he has that face to face contact with the prison, whatever you want to call him, one of the main guys at the prison in
Warden.
Russia, the warden. There you go. And the warden goes, I heard that you have some screws loose, but you're not Yuri. You have a lot of screws loose. And he was just playing the role. And the whole thing with him, like, I'm a black belt now.
Oh my
And
gosh, that whole thing, that whole montage of him talking himself through his fighting
yeah,
style and
yeah,
how his hands are this and his feet are these, and
yeah,
I was like, "Oh my gosh." Then he puts him to work and I was like, "Okay, Steven Seagal."
yeah. It was like Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, the fact that he knows he can do it, but he's also like this, grimy old long-haired hippie, and I don't know. I just thought that was really cool to see him actually fight and be able to do it, and him being almost kind of surprised that he was able to do it too.
Yeah.
Other than that, I really think that season 4 is just a good like show in itself. Like it could
Yeah.
almost be a movie if you took it and put it into one, and the episodes are really long.
Yeah.
Which I also love too. Like I'd rather have these long episodes, and you just get so much more. It's like watching 7 movies,
Yeah.
really. And yeah, the whole way that everything with Victor Creel turns out in the end, with his son being Vecna. And I don't even know that Vecna's his real name. It's just the name they gave the villain in the
Yeah, it's
D and
just the
D.
name or
Which
number 1.
I always love that too, is the fact that the villain is named by the kids because of their D&D
D&D. Yeah, I've
game.
that's always been fun. Do you know who one is or Vecna is?
Do I,
Like the character? Like who plays him?
he looks familiar.
Yeah, he does.
What has he been in?
I bet if I asked your sister, she
Oh,
would
probably.
know.
I think she might have shown me actually. What is
He
it?
is part of the Volteri,
Oh, that's right. Sarah actually
and
showed me that. Yeah.
because I looked at him and I was like, Bree, does he not look familiar? And Bree's thinking the same thing, so of course I IMDb it, and I was like, holy crap, that's him.
Yep, he was the pasty white guy that stood over and always had his eyes open.
Yeah, he always had his
Yeah.
eyes open.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's right. But like,
He's I think he did a really good job with
yeah,
his.
super creepy. Just like always like standing there in the back, like just standing. And I love that reveal at the end where you learn he's one, and then when he gets sucked in, which that was another thing that kind of threw me off a little bit, is when he gets sucked into that portal that Elle creates, and he's getting struck by lightning because she like disintegrated his body.
Yeah, I'm so confused on how that is the same person. Like,
Yeah,
I really need, this I've got the like 3 hours on these last two episodes. I really hope that's explained,
Yeah.
even if it's just a throwaway sentence, because right now it does not make any sense.
Well, she pretty much disintegrates him. He goes through the portal, and then he's perfectly fine as he's falling.
Yeah,
And
his
then
shirt is fine,
yeah,
everything. Nothing's ripped other than, before the lightning.
yeah, and then he gets struck
I
by
was like,
lightning, and his body just gets deformed into the tentacle man of Vecna. So no, overall, man, this whole show is just it's rewatchable. It really is. Like if you had 2 weeks to kill and you just wanted to binge something, you know, just to have something in the evenings to watch, it is something that you can go start to finish and feel accomplished after you watch it because it's good. And these next two episodes are gonna be really good, I think. I don't know that they could ruin it. I mean, I guess they could, but
mm, I don't know how they could, unless it just they start throwing in more randomness on
yeah,
like the upside down.
yeah. Well, I have
But
a
I mean,
feeling, that Nancy, Murray, and Hopper are on their way back from Russia now. Like
you mean
it's
Joyce?
Joyce, yeah. What did I say, Nancy? Yeah.
You said Nancy.
Sorry, there's like 50,000 names in this show.
Well, I'm always curious. I mean, do you think there's a portal in Russia there?
Well, I don't know.
Because that's about the only thing I can think of about how they would get back to him.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a way. It's just written in the script.
Yeah, it is written in the
They
script
they
somehow.
walk they walk back into Indiana, and there's no more snow.
Yeah.
um, so do you have any predictions, thoughts, what's gonna happen? And
I do think that the reason for all the portals is for an attack on L. I don't think
okay,
it's an attack on the world. I think it's to somehow trap L and surround her easier.
okay,
Because I do think that that's what this is all about. It's never been about Will. Will was an innocent bystander the first couple seasons, and then I think when I'd have to rewatch, but I think that there's a moment in I'm going to say season 3, where the Mind Flayer realizes, hey, this is 11. This is
yeah,
the person we are. This is priority number 1 now.
yeah. What the crazy thing to me is the fact that this gives you this season gives you a reason for everything that has happened throughout the whole show. L created a portal, sent one through. One became Vecna. Vecna created. I I think the upside down was a thing, possibly. I don't know. I don't think that maybe L did create it. I don't know, but he gets sucked in there, and
Well,
he starts sending out minions.
it's frozen in time. That's kind of the crazy thing
Yeah.
to me, is that it's not growing. It's
hmm
just maintaining.
Yeah, that was kind of a weird explanation too, is because they get back there and the time that it was created is where it's stuck.
Yeah, it's the day that Will, quote unquote, was taken, which also happens to be the day that L made the portal.
Okay.
So it almost leads me to believe that L made the upside down.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense because they talk about how, you know, what does Nancy have at her house that they can go get, whether it's
Yeah,
her bike so they can ride through the town, which was a cool throwback to seasons
the
1
f-
and
the
2
because they
where
rode
they
their bikes everywhere.
yeah, exactly. It was one of those things that you're like, "Oh yeah, the bikes are back."
I mean, they've made so many nods to the first season and the second one.
Yeah.
It's just, if it ends on these last two, I will be perfectly okay.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I wouldn't mind seeing a season 5, but if we get season 4 part 2 and those episodes just it ends with a big smile on your face, then that's all that matters. And I would be happy.
So the one thing that does bother me, and it's just like, I'm picking, super, super fine hairs off a horse to find something wrong with this, but I can't stand when the characters that they have and they put them in high school and they are obviously not high school age.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what worries me about Stranger Things is that if they keep dragging this out, I
They're
mean,
gonna
right
get
now
too old.
they're freshmen in high school,
Yeah.
allegedly.
Yeah.
And they went through junior high pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I'm worried that we're going to have a 13 Reasons Why when, when the main characters of obviously do not look high school age, they're going to be like, hey, I'm going to pull a quick one over you and do this. I'm going to make every student in the school look over the age of 30. And then
Yeah.
that way it's just normal. That's how everyone looks.
Yep.
And that drives me insane when they try to do that.
Yeah. Like Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man just looked way too
Yeah.
old to be in high school. Everybody in that high school looked too old to be in high school.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think you're right though. I think that Vecna is creating these portals to have an advantage on L.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's trying to get revenge, and that's going to be the main plot for these next two episodes is just revenge, and he's going to try to get back. And I think he's creating these portals to get strength too. He's taking the bodies and then absorbing something from them to gain strength. He's kind of got that whole, like, the tentacles are obviously like charging him or something, you know?
Or like that's where he goes to to charge up. Like
Yeah.
they're like he's not necessarily getting power to do the things he's doing. He is recharging his batteries, if that makes any sense. I don't think that makes any sense.
No, yeah, no, I got you. I got you. It's like his ports. He plugs them in to
Yeah. And
make
he's like,
himself.
I need to fuel the old batteries.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm excited. I am, and it's the beginning of July. So if you've watched it and you're chomping at the bit to see the next two episodes, beginning of July, we'll get the last two episodes, and
Yep.
let's just cross our fingers and hope they're just as good as the whole season was. I've heard some feedback on the season from some people, and I've heard here's and theirs. I don't think there's. I've heard I loved it, and I've heard it was all right,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of it is that jumping around, and I think a lot of the goods are the fact that the story's there and the plot's there. So I'm excited to hear what people have to say about it. So, get a hold of us and let us know your thoughts on the entire series or just season 4, what your favorite season is, who your favorite characters are, because Colton and I obviously have some favorite characters, and I think I have like 20 favorite characters. So, um, Robin,
Yes, I
Billy,
love Robin. I think it's the side characters.
it really is. Yeah. They just add so much to it, and they're actually a part of it. They're not just standing there. They're actually doing something,
Yeah.
which is important. Really, it is. But
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I think we've covered pretty much all the seasons and some of our thoughts on what's going to happen here at the end of season 4. And I just really, this show is, we how long has this show been out? When did the first season air?
I have no
I don't know
idea.
either, but man, it's been around for a while. At least
16
since
maybe.
I was gonna say I was in college when it first aired. So, and I remember watching that first season and being like, this is a cool show. And then watching it with Sarah and coming home the last couple weeks, and Sarah's been watching it. So you see, just I've seen snippets, and I watched the end of season 3 with her. But and yeah, it's one of those that in 2 years I'll be like, we should rewatch Stranger Things.
Yeah,
You know.
for sure.
So yeah, that's all we got for Stranger Things, I think. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Man, not that I can think of.
Right on. We've had it's been a weird episode. We've had some technical difficulties throughout the
Yeah,
night, and
I hope it's not bad.
yeah, we took a long break. It's that's what happens. I mean, internet, man.
Yeah.
Internet.
Game
Another
over,
reason,
man. Game
go back to the
over.
80s, we don't have to worry about all the
No joke.
worrying about our internet being like super fast when it could just be dial up or slow or no internet at all.
Just being in an AOL chat room.
Yeah. Just send me an email at rocketmail.com. uh, all right. Ready for some plugs?
Plug it.
Plug it, plug it, plug it, plug it. All right, everybody. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts, whether that be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, or even Podbean. You can also find us on all of your social media accounts. We do have Facebook. That's facebook.com/thecallguyspod. We are on Instagram under The Call Guys and TikTok under The Call Guys Podcast. I do post videos on there, just snippets of the episodes, because we are also on YouTube. So look us up on YouTube. Just search The Call Guys Podcast. The YouTube link will be in the podcast notes and anywhere you get your podcast. If you have any recommendations for the question of the podcast, future episodes, if you just want to tell us your top 10s from our past episodes, you can shoot us an email at thecallguyspodcast@gmail.com. And also check out our merch store. Our merch store, we have t-shirts, shorts, leggings. Man, there's so much stuff on there, and I'm working on getting hats on there. So that is thecallguyspodcaststore.com. Go buy a shirt, support us, wear it out. If Colton sees you in public, he's gonna sign it. So
That's right.
you see someone running at you with a marker, don't run. That shirt might be worth something someday. All right, everybody. Also check out the Golden Image Podcast. That's facebook.com/Golden Image Podcast. That's where Golden J, the Skywalker, and myself talk about all things Indiana. Colton and I kind of hit on all these here earlier in the podcast, but we're going to go over them again just so you know that the Emperor has an umbrella full of podcasts that he is supporting and doing stuff for. And, it's just a world of podcasts right now. Also check out the Murdnerds. That's facebook.com/Murdnerds. They are a true crime podcast that focuses on unsolved murders and missing persons cases in Indiana. Alicia had posted something the day that we are recording this to where they are doing some special event episodes where they're going to be recording while camping around a campfire, and they're going to tell some spooky campfire stories. So that sounds like it'd be an interesting event. And also check out the United States of Paranormal podcast. That's facebook.com/United States of Paranormal. That is, there are two teams of the United States Paranormal, Team Boogers and Team Tejas. And what they do is they switch over every other week to where Team Tejas does an episode, then Team Boogers does an episode. And man, Team Tejas has been putting out some crazy good episodes, and Team Boogers is following right along. They're a really good podcast if you want to hear anything about the spooky, paranormal, or darn right scary. Go check them out. Facebook.com/United States of Paranormal. It's time for a chiller filler. No, I really do give them all props. Everybody's doing really well.
Yeah.
I'm excited to move on to our next venture coming up here soon. We got the entire schedule for the first 20 episodes of the Indiana Chiefs fans podcast figured out. So that is all in a document, and we are going to start at the beginning of July. And we're going to talk about everything Chiefs. There's 3 of us that have been Chiefs fans for a long time, and we all have been Chiefs, well, for different periods of time, I guess. And man, we all have knowledge of the Chiefs. We've all been to Kansas City. One of the hosts is from Kansas City. My dad has been a Chiefs fan for a long time. Phil is just a dictionary of chiefs. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting podcast, I think, and hopefully enjoyable for anybody in Indiana that is a Chiefs fan. Expect some special guests on that show. Expect some, stuff from the road going to KC. Oh, maybe Colton will come on and tell us why we need to be Bears fans,
Oh gosh.
or
Don't
tell
waste your
us
time.
not to be Bears fans. So yeah, yes. Good episode, Colton. Sorry about all the technical stuff,
Dude,
but
man, I'm
hey,
sorry too, man. I don't know what happened. I mean,
it's
you made it through.
it's
I'm
funny.
ready for the movie magic.
Yeah. I am going to go see Top Gun this weekend before this airs, and I'm excited to see it. I've heard some really good things, so
Nice.
yeah. So maybe I'll talk about that a little bit in an episode. Who knows?
Cool beans.
Anything you want to add?
No, man, you killed it again, man. Did a great job.
It's like it just pours out of my mouth. All right. Well, everybody, I want to thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.